down.
Yeah.
You're not getting out of this.
I may have to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trail Talk. Man, we are so glad you could join us today. We are here in our Garris Gallery in the featured artist room with our featured artist, Skip Rowell. Skip, welcome to Trail Talk.
Thank you kindly.
Yeah.
Well, you professional at this, ain't you?
Well, you know, yeah, I've got one or two under my
I
belt.
can tell we're gonna be all right.
We're going to be all right. Yes, we are. So Skip is our featured artist beginning today, and your art is going to be here in the gallery for about 3 months, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. So you guys are going to you'll have a lot of opportunities to come and see his creations, and we're going to give you a little taste of it today. I think people are going to really want to come and get an up close look at things.
Well, we definitely got a variety.
Yes.
You know, there's something here for everybody.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we have this beautiful painting behind us, and from what I understand, is this your most recent painting?
No, I did that back in, I think, October.
Okay. Okay.
Specifically did it for the Trail of Tears show there.
Which you won the Indian Heritage Award, I
Yeah,
see.
not the Trail of Tears show, but the Five Civilized Tribes Masters Art Show.
Masters Art Show. So what makes a person a master
Well,
artist?
it started, I don't know how many years ago. They've always, since they started that museum, a lady, Martha Griffin, was real instrumental there, Griffin Food Company, and she contributed a lot to that museum. And they would have a little art show, and there was always one or two artists that were outstanding, so they separated them. And if you won so much at different shows, then they voted on you to deem you whether you would become a master artist of the tribe or not.
Right. I guess that makes the competition a little more.
And then, so they separated to the point where they had a master's art show.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not sure, but I think there's only like maybe 18 or 20 of us left that all of them have passed away. And it's just, you have to be voted into it.
I see. Is that a process they still
Yeah.
do? They're still, so they're adding.
Yeah,
Masters.
occasionally they had one every year or two or something, you know. So it just depends on the artist and the quality of their work and stuff.
So this being the Five Civilized Tribes Museum, would you be required to have art that
Pertains to,
represents one of the 5 civilized tribes? For those of you who don't know, that would be Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek, and Seminole. Is that correct? Okay, so tell us about this fella right here then.
Well, this is, and I don't try to specifically do a specific tribal member.
Okay.
I try to combine, because during that time, there was a lot of turmoil in the 5 tribes. We had the French, the English, then the American settlers, Spanish, they were all coming in an influx and offering trade goods, their old muskets and hatchets and different things in the jewelry to get the alliances. Basically, they were after the furs and they wanted these tribes to align with them. And so,
for the trade,
yeah,
it was for money.
much.
It was all chasing
it was
the
all
money.
trade goods, mostly the shirts and everything, you know. And so I try to combine a little bit of all of them together, you know. And I've got one piece I did specifically has got every facet of the dress of that tribe in it. Let's scrimshaw. This is basically a Creek to a Chickasaw.
Okay.
You know, with the custom, they had the tribal tattoos and
the hair, they shaved their heads partially.
Back, you know.
And I guess the paint on the face would
Well,
be
those
indicative.
are tattoos. They actually
Okay.
tattooed themselves. There's a lot of old tribal tattoos and stuff. The arms, the upper thighs, the face, some of them were tattoos. there across the forehead, but they're actually tattooed.
And so is this landscape area behind, is this like indicative of the eastern part of the United
Yeah,
States?
pretty much around the Mississippi Delta
Okay.
down there with the big
Uh-huh.
timber country, and
Mhm.
they were always guarding that river because that's where all the threats came from. All these different people and warrior tribes would come down the river. So that was the part that they really kept a watch on. And it's like this, depicting this guy, there's a noise in the wood and there's somebody coming and he don't know if it's friend or foe. So he's in the process of cocking his old rifle just in case, you know. And so at that time was a real prosperous time for them, but yet a real uneasy time because there was just so much different conflict going on, you know. All these other people trying to pull them into it.
And so, and this would have been before the Trail of Tears, before
Yeah,
they brought them over to Indian Territory, Oklahoma
yeah.
Territory, yeah. So when they were in their true native lands in the United States. Well, it's a beautiful piece, very nice. When you, so what is your, what type of medium?
It's an
do you
oil
use?
painting
An
on
oil.
canvas, yeah.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah, it is, you know, and I do some watercolors and I did a lot of pastels a few years ago, but I just kind of got settled on the oils. I just like them better, you know. And so that's pretty much what I stay with now when I paint.
Right. It's a very detailed piece. I'm guessing this was a kind of a long process.
Yeah, you know, I do that scrimshaw stuff. We'll probably look at this
Yes,
later,
we will. We're going to
which
get to
is
that.
just really compacted with detail. But when I get into painting, I get really loosened up a little bit. To me, it's fun. After I do a scrimshaw piece, this is kind of like painting a barn.
Right.
You know, I can just, and I try to get the detail, but yet not too much.
Right.
You know, where it's got a little freedom and flow to it and everything.
It's
you know?
not exactly impressionist, but you know, it has that effect where you don't get lost in the little,
Yeah.
but you
know.
see the trees, you see the pine, the leaves and everything, but you don't have to
Yeah,
have it drawn out exactly.
That's kind of what I was trying to get into, you know, you just can take maybe just a swipe and make a wrinkle rather than meticulously doing all that, you know, and I call it just freedom, you know, I enjoy doing it.
Are you a trained artist, or did you go to school and learn how to use these paints? Or?
Well, not really. I've got a degree in commercial art and advertising. That's from the 60s, complete different era stuff. And it was basically, after I got out of college, I went to work for Frontier Theater Incorporated in Dallas, and we were designing billboards for theaters outside and that type of stuff. But the fine art, I just, you know, and like I say, a lot of my stuff may not be politically correct. I just do it suit me, you know. I may have something centered and everybody say, oh, you're not supposed to have that center, it's supposed to be off. I don't care, I'm gonna put it right there. You know?
Right.
So pretty much I do what I want to, and if somebody likes it, fine. If you don't, I keep it, so it doesn't matter.
But you've been able to, you are a professional artist. This is your profession.
Yes, yeah, I've been doing this since 1985, I think.
Well, I'd say he probably knows what he's doing if he's provided for his family and everything this whole time. So I'd say you probably kind of.
I was a cowboy,
trust
the
yourself.
biggest part of my life. I worked on ranches, did a lot of freelance. I used to enjoy going catching wild cattle that farmers couldn't catch, you know, and that kind. But and then I rodeoed for 25, 30 years and just traveled all over the country and kind of lived a wild life. And I had a saddle shop and you know, I was a little kid. My dad, he thought if you was drawing or painting on something, you were a sissy. I grew up in a family of hillbillies.
Okay.
Basically, I'm just to be honest with you. My grandmother was a world famous bootlegger.
Okay.
And So, but anyway, I would remember hiding behind the bed, mom was buying crayons and stuff, you know, and I'd hide and draw on cardboard boxes and stuff. And so if the Lord implants that in you, you always got it.
You got it.
And it's, I talk to a lot of young people and I try to explain to them, you're given a gift, but it's not, it's like a baby. It's just a baby. It's up to you to grow it and to develop it. And so the art part of it, it never ceases. I mean, if I'm fishing, I might see a bird or something there and I think I could use that in a picture one of these days. And I almost like take a mental photograph. And a lot of times I'll be having a conversation with my wife, but I'm thinking about something else, you know.
Right.
Because a lot of times things she wants to talk about not important anyway.
Oh, boy. She's right over there.
But if you've got that in there, it's just always there,
Right.
you know. And
You
so,
need an outlet. You need a way to express it.
And I love all types of different art. I've done some bronzes. I love bronzes. It got to the point that I'd done some. I sold all of them that I had, and I had the Bronze Horse Foundry there in Pawhuska. They had a fire and the molds burned up, and I just never did. It was during that time the financial crunch got on, and people wasn't buying expensive bronzes, so I just kind of picked up carving the antlers. So I like to do all different types of art that keeps me from getting bored. I would hate to just have to paint every day. I don't think I would ever make it, you know, but I may work on this a while, and if it's not going like I want it to, I'll go carve on something, or I'll make a knife and then I'll come back to it.
That's interesting. A lot of artists I've talked to talk about experimenting with other things to stretch themselves, you know, but it sounds like you just kind of do it to just keep yourself.
Well, I tell you what, I can stand a good stretching. I seem to have got compacted over the.
You know, it happens. It happens, yeah. Speaking of your carvings, let's walk over here to where we have some of them. You want to have a seat over here, or?
Well, I always growed up with ladies are supposed to sit
Well,
down.
there's a chair right over there for me that we'll get over here.
Well, I'll stand up for the time being.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
It'd just be embarrassing, me sitting down and you standing up.
Well, we're not going to embarrass you for any way. Let's have a seat here. Because we can see several of your pieces behind us. Is the detail in this, is this a scrimshaw?
Yes.
Detail? So, first of all, well, let's wait on the scrimshaw because I think it's going to be very fascinating. And let's talk about your carvings, because these, first of all, where do you get these antlers? These things are enormous.
Yeah, and they're, you know, somebody gave me one back probably about 86 or 7. And I throwed it on the porch of my studio, and I thought, what am I going to do with that thing? You know, and I kicked it around for a month or two, and I said, I'll see if I can't cut something in it. And it just kind of started there, and they have really been good for us. We have sold a lot of them, and one thing was humorous. I sold one to, I think we were at Tulsa at the Indian Art Festival, and a guy from, what was that guy from Sweden, I think, or Norway. And he had a guy with him that could speak English. This guy couldn't speak English, but he bought a big moose antler cart, and we conveyed to him that we would ship it to him.
Right.
He wouldn't have that. He carried it all the way to Norway in his lap on the airplane. And he wrote us a letter after he got home in Norwegian. And I don't know what happened to that letter. I couldn't find nobody that ever could read it, you know, but he was so proud of that. He had his picture with it at the airport, you know. And,
what a great story.
but we have sold them all over the country. And to answer your question, where I get them is pretty much wherever I can.
Do you go out or do you order them or do you
Well,
actually go out and find them? Because that would be,
No, you can't
a
find
lot.
moose in Oklahoma around the
No,
country. They're
no.
pretty skinny. They're hard to find.
yeah, I have gone looking for moose in other places. I thought maybe you would travel around or something.
No,
and-
I started out after I found out that I could sell them. Then I would order them. You can buy them off the internet, and you still can.
Yeah, yeah.
An antler like this, I could buy for time I got it shipped in, I might have $75 in it.
Mhm.
Now this antler costs you $350.
Wow.
The market on them is just going through the roof. And what's interesting is that as a hobby, a friend of mine, his daughter-in-law opened up an antique store. And she was needing people to have booths. So I said, yeah, I'll take one. So I got to go around and on weekends at garage sales around the square, you know, and just buy junk and have fun with it, you know.
Right.
And I was at a garage sale last year and looked over there and there was this pair of moose antlers still on the skull. And I messed around and bought them for $40. So this one and that one are matching pairs.
Wow.
But I'm not gonna deduct what I had to give for the.
Right, yeah.
But, that one over there cost me about $250 time I got it shipped in, maybe
Mhm.
260 or 70, you know, so.
Sometimes you're lucky and.
And
happen upon
sometimes
something.
people will run across one in a pawn shop or something. If people know I carve them, a lot of times people, hey, I found you an antler, you know, so it's just kind of hit or miss.
So are the moose, I mean, that's like for these kinds of things, do you use I know deer antlers are smaller, elk are a little bit bigger girth, I guess you'd say, but I mean, do you ever carve things out of those?
Well, not sometimes I might carve a little deer antler or something, but not much, nothing.
Because they don't have that flat.
Most antlers are a little softer in the middle, but pretty much they're solid all the way through. And with your elk and your deer and stuff, you've got in the middle what they call a honeycomb. Real soft stuff with and it just falls apart. So I don't do it. You can do a little bit on the outside and I have.
I've seen like some handles.
Yeah.
Of a knife made from an antler.
Yeah. And that's what these are. This is a piece of a moose antler, and then I think this is just a deer antler. But they scrimshaw pretty good, but nothing works like ivory and as far as a scrimshaw. And the best I've ever worked on is whale's teeth. And I haven't had one of them in years. The last one I had, somebody found in a pawn shop in Arkansas, an old friend of mine, and brought it to me.
So what makes those the best material for scrimshaw? The hardness or what is it?
It's not really. I got a piece of hippo one time, a hippo tusk, and it was like trying to scratch on iron. I hated that thing. It was too hard. So it's just ivory. If you look, and if you ever want to know the piece you find, whether it's fake, they make a lot of this stuff out of ivory dust and epoxy that looks like ivory, but it's not. It has a grain in the bottom of it. You look at the bottom and it's cross-grained like that, and then the grain runs this way. That's what makes it so great for carving and everything. That's why the Japanese and Chinese can make such intricate carvings out of it, because it doesn't break off. It holds its shape.
Oh, okay.
And interesting story about this one whale's tooth I had. We were scheduled to do a big show in Denver. We used to do it every year until we adopted our daughter, and then we didn't want to go off and leave her. So anyway, I got this whale tooth, nice whale tooth, about that tall, about that beautiful. By the time you get it polished, it's just almost like you could see through it nearly. And I did a real elaborate scrimshaw. I started out at the very tip with eagles flying and spiraled it around, coming down the Rocky Mountains. And I had big horn sheep, and then elk, and then a deer, and then on down at the bottom to a beaver pond with the elk, moose and stuff in it. I had it mounted it on a swivel, a rotating base. And I had a doctor friend in Muskogee had I did a commission piece for one of his friends, and I told him I was working on that tooth. He said, well, I want to see it. So on our way to Denver, we swing by Muskogee and I call him. He comes down in the parking lot, got on his operating clothes. I guess he left somebody.
Scrubs.
Yeah.
He left
comes down,
mid-operation.
I've got that sitting on the hood of the pickup and it's turned it on and it's just spiraling around, and it's kind of hypnotic looking.
Uh-huh.
He said, how much you want for that? I said, I don't want to sell it because I'm with that show in Denver and I'm going to enter in the competition. He said, how much you going to want for it when you get back? I said, well, this was back 25 years ago. I said, probably $900, $1,000. He said, how much is that prize money out there? I said, it's 500. He said, okay, I'll just pay you for first place and I'll take it now, So it's things like that happen,
Right.
But they work so beautiful. They're creamy. They hold a tremendous amount of detail, but yet they're soft enough to work. Now, these deer antlers, sometimes you'll get them sanded down, but you see the little discoloration.
Mm-hmm.
That starts to get into the perforation part. It's porous.
Okay.
If you're not careful, it'll smear with you when you go to put your ink in it. So you have to really hand pick a piece of antler.
Right. And so where that is more porous, you can see you left your scrimshaw design.
Yeah,
Away
you just
from
have
it.
to stay away from
Uh-huh.
it, but with ivory, you don't have to do that.
So for those of us who don't know what scrimshaw is, describe that process, because I think people are going to be very interested in this.
I'll tell you what scrimshaw means.
Okay.
It means do nothing.
Do nothing.
It got its name from the whaling era when the men were whaling, and they'd be on these long voyages. Until they found whales, they had absolutely nothing to do except scrub the ship. So they got to taking the teeth out of the whale, the ivory teeth, and they would carve them and they'd scratch on them with knife and they'd take some of the soot and the blubber mixed together and make a dye and color it, and so that's how it got its name. They were just sitting around on a ship doing nothing. So they call them scrimshanders or do nothingers. But that's how it got its popularity. And a lot of it you see, it will be of ships and whales and ocean scenes and stuff. Got popular in Hawaii and then on both coasts. And there's not a lot of people that carry it to this point. And a lot of it is pretty crude. When I started out, I just taught myself to do this because I always wanted to put something on one of my knife handles. I thought it looked cool.
Right.
So I started out teaching myself how to do this. And I started out with it. I got somebody, a highway patrol friend of mine, gave me a book, and I'm not going to say who wrote it. The worst thing I ever got hold of, because it told you take a X-Acto knife, and that's what you do it with. Well, you can make some lines with it, but it looks like you chopped it out with a hatchet when you get through.
Yeah.
And so I just kept tinkering with different things, and I finally just found out that a sewing needle, I just go to Walmart, buy a little spool of them different size sewing needles.
Right.
Put it in a dowel rod where I can hold it, and that's what I use. And
Is this one of your
that's
tools?
one just wore out.
Okay. So you can see here, it's really just a very tiny dowel rod.
It's just a little
With
small
just, I don't know if you
dowel
can
rod
see the
with a
little needle out the bottom there. Still a little fuzzy, Scott. I want to say like you're getting warmer, but it's not. So here's the deal, people. You're going to have to come. Oh, here we go. We're starting to get a little, there it is. You can see the little needle sticking out the end there. So how long, like how many, well, this says each piece will have approximately 80 to 120 hours of work.
Well, what that is was I had that made when I hang my exhibit pieces at shows, and that's more the bigger pieces like over there.
Like one of these.
Yeah, we're not talking about little stuff like this, but it's more of the.
This is like 120.
Well,
hours,
I'd estimate
80 hours.
that's probably got anywhere close to about 90 hours in it. Some of them I've done are pieces that big,
Trying to
But-
get that glare off. There we go.
But that's done
That's-
with just thousands and thousands of little pin dots. And you work a little while, and then you rub the ink in there and see what you're doing, and you can't erase it. If you mess up, you gotta just sand it off and start over, you know,
Mm.
so.
Well, how do you know if you've messed up or not?
Well, first thing you learn to do if you mess up, you learn how to cover it up, like run a leaf over there or something, you know?
We've had some other, like a leather
Yeah.
work artist, and that's what he
Well,
said, you'll make
see, I
it
had-
into something
I had
else.
a saddle shop for years and while I was rodeoing, and that's the first thing you learn to do is learn the tool leather, and then you learn how to cover up mistakes.
Uh-huh,
I
right.
just carry that over into.
So you just make tiny, tiny dots. I'm
Yeah.
imagining like pointillism, you know, art with all the tiny dots of paint, but these are just holes
Yeah,
in
you
your,
Just peck it, you know, like that, and you get a rhythm down, and another thing you have to really be aware of is these old pieces of mammoth ivory are anywhere from 65,000 years on up.
and that's what these are made
Yeah,
on?
and
Wow.
so.
I'm kind of getting into that whole
Let me-
mammoth thing, y'all. That's kind of,
Yeah,
that's
that's a piece
super
of-
cool.
This is called the bark ivory. This is the part that's on the outside of the tush, and it's weathered and laid there in the frozen tundra.
Right.
And the piece over there that has called the new pipe, it's a piece that comes from Siberia. These others came out of Alaska.
I'm gonna hop up and find that piece. Oh, okay, right here. And, but this is mammoth tusk,
Yeah,
right?
and these are what they call the bark ivory outside. I buy it through a dealer out of Alaska. Used to, anybody could go up to Alaska and buy it. The Eskimos and the native people up there find that they still make the same hunting routes they made 500 years ago or 1,000.
So they're finding
They
mammoth.
find, yeah, they find it, they
tusk?
find a lot of artifacts made out of a walrus tusk. I used to have a bunch of them made out, harpoon heads, to be sled
Mhm.
runners, fishing weights, everything that our native people here, we used,
Buffalo.
flint and bone and different things.
Uh-huh.
Out there, they just use ivory.
Wow.
The walrus tusk, the mammoth tusk,
Uh-huh.
and the whiter pieces like that one there,
Uh-huh.
that's a piece that's come out of the inside. And when you
Oh,
cut that, it's
okay.
still white. And so all I do is just polish, sand
You
that.
sand the dark part
Yeah.
off to give you a surface to add color
And
to.
some of it you get different colors. I've had some with a lot of green streaks and stuff in it, and that comes from copper oxides
Mm.
that absorbs out of the ground for laying there for so many years.
Mhm.
And they're finding a lot of that now, due to the warming and a lot of.
Oh, the
ivory
ice
showing up.
melting and things
And,
like that.
But I started out buying this stuff by the pound. You could get so much, half a pound of it or something, you know, for $80.
Right.
Now you buy it so much by the gram. And you could call and get a quote on it, just like gold and silver. What
Wow.
happened, people got to investing in it, buying it up. And so that drove the price of it up. And so it's just like everything else. It just goes up, and there's so many different types. I love working on walrus ivory. The
Mhm.
grain in walrus ivory is a little bit tighter. It holds a little more detail even than the mammoth. And those behind you, those knife handles,
Mhm.
that's an ivory that comes from
This
a
one?
warthog.
Oh.
And
I think-
you wouldn't believe what that looks like when I get them in. I mean, you got this just old gross tush with scales all over it.
Ugh.
And it's, but it's just beautiful ivory once you get it sanded
Right.
down and get into it. It carves really well, and it's real creamy.
So those wild hogs around here, are their tusks any good? Because there's you ought to have about as much of that as you want.
Yeah, I, one year, on
That's
the army
beautiful.
plant down there, a friend of mine running a wildlife on, we killed and captured over 400
Oh, yeah.
off of there one year.
Wow.
But the only difference is those warthog tush are pretty solid all the way to about that far from the end.
Mm.
And the native pigs we got here their tush or hollow all the way up to about that far from the tip. And so they have a tendency to crack real bad when they dry out and everything.
Right.
And I've done some stuff on them, but you can't do a collector's piece or make a knife out of them because over a period of time, and so thin they're gonna crack and
Right. I
split.
bet y'all didn't know you were gonna get a lesson in tusk and.
Oh, yeah. Well, wait till I get into telling you some cowboy stories.
Oh, my
We ain't
goodness.
got started yet.
Oh, my
I'm
goodness.
getting into this now.
Oh, yeah.
We can go another hour.
Skip's on a roll.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of hit on the antler carvings and your scrimshaw, which I'm serious, you guys, you really need to come and see this firsthand. The detail is just unbelievable. It's
Well,
just
there's some
amazing. It's
things in there,
beautiful.
like that piece over there, called
one?
A Message from the Turtle Clan. There's things in there that you actually need a magnifying glass to see.
Right, and good news, we have some. We're gonna leave them out here so you guys can use them.
I'm gonna work my wife into this
Okay,
because she gets, hand me that carbon tush, Cleor, please. She loves being on
She's-
camera.
our own Vanna White for the day.
Yeah. This is a piece of mammoth ivory that I
Oh,
got.
and you put a mammoth on it.
Yeah, I got it in, and I was gonna do it for the piece for the master show, and it didn't have a good color that I liked, the scrimshaw, so this piece, like, I think I gave wholesale for that, like $250 just for this piece.
Mhm.
And you look on the back of it, if you saw that laying on the ground, you'd think it's just a piece of old wood.
You would, you sure
But,
would.
so I carved that and put a mammoth on there, and I used the native people with atlatls, the way they used to actually hunt them, you know, and then
What do you have to use? Like, what kind of tool do you carve these?
most of,
Yeah.
most of it I use are, Dremel tools.
Oh, okay.
Fordham's, and I get, have a enormous supply of dental bits, all the way
Oh.
down to needle point that they use on, so I've got all kinds, and I'm in the process of rigging my carving system up to air. Right now, I use electric motors,
Mm-hmm.
and you get right down into really fine detail, and you got a certain amount of vibration in an electric motor, and what you don't have with air. You can run air and it runs totally smooth.
Right.
And so I'm eventually, in the next year or so, converting all my tools over to air tools. And I can even do, I think, better work than this, you know.
So it sounds like you plan to just keep churning stuff out.
Well, it ain't a bad way to make a living. I tell you what,
You know what? People who love their work, which I think you, like you said earlier, it's been inside you
yeah,
since you were a
it's just
little
there.
boy.
Ain't nothing to do
And,
about it.
right. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
When I quit rodeoing and cowboying, and last time I went to help somebody, I had to get a bucket to get up on the daggum horse. I told them both young guys there, I said, if y'all laugh, I'm gonna pull every one of you off and whoop you this road. So I decided it's time for me to quit, you know,
Right.
but, it's just, when I quit all that stuff, if you've been cowboy for a long time, you ain't about to get a real job.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out something to do I could, kind of,
Get your own
yeah,
hours.
you know.
Yeah.
So I took this up.
But I mean, I look at all of these things that you create and I feel like you spend a lot of time doing this. This is detailed work. This isn't like you know, go churn 5 or 6 things out in a week or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some people can really paint and, you know, make things very quickly, but your work is detailed and takes time. So it seems like you must be like you like to spend
It
a lot
does,
of
you
time
know,
doing that.
and it's hard to explain, but there in my studio, and of course, I generally keep some Red Signal cowboy music playing in the background, and I'm doing my thing, but working on a piece of ivory that's probably 75,000 years old,
Mhm.
and you get to thinking, I wonder what it was like when this thing walked the earth, you know, and who found this piece of tusk, and especially when you got the artifacts, the Eskimo artifacts, that some of them were really elaborate. Some of their fishing weight, big old teardrop things with little tiny holes in them. How they chopped that out and work, and you're thinking, your mind just goes to drifting back while you're working on this, and it's kind of, sometimes it's even an eerie feeling, you know.
Right.
The guy used it, looked like they used this to make a living, you know. Here I am carving on it.
Right.
What I've always wanted to do was tranquilize a moose and carve his antler and then turn him loose.
That is such a cool idea.
Can you imagine what? Imagine what?
Right, would the other moose laugh,
Yeah.
or would they be in awe? Wow, look.
But that's kind of the way my mind goes sometimes, you know, but I don't know, it's been a fun life. God has blessed me, and I try to always pay my respect back, and that's why I use the cross when I sign my name at the bottom of the R. And it's like we talked earlier, it's a God-given gift, but it's up to you to develop it.
I thought that was great advice for you to give a young artist, just a picture of, you know, you have to teach a baby everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know.
And I'm really, I don't like to brag. I told you, mentioned earlier, I had a one-eyed Burma cow, broke me from bragging when I was 18 years old, but I do brag on my children. And Anna Marie, who is married to a relative around here that I won't mention her name on camera. But she has got a load of art talent. She's more gifted than what I am, but she don't care about doing it. She said, "No, you can't make enough money." You know, well, okay. She'll.
All the kids these days, it's all about the money.
The day will come when she'll pick it. She occasionally will do something, but when she does, it just amazes me, you know, that she can actually do that.
Well, she'll have it in her. She'll need to have a way to get this out. So a couple more things I want to ask you about. So you have several of these knives here, and this blade is what?
It's obsidian.
Okay, obsidian.
Yeah.
And so what does the piece of obsidian look like when you get it? Is the whole thing, the handle is that a wooden handle? Yeah,
it's a piece of carved walnut, and then I inlaid an ivory barrier in it.
Okay.
But the obsidian basically all it is a volcanic glass.
Okay.
But it was really prized for spear and arrowheads and stuff, and it was kind of a one-shot deal, because if you drop this on the floor, it's going to shatter, it's going to break.
Because it's like glass.
But you could cut with it, and I have actually just playing with it one day. I took a piece and just went to sawing on the antler, and it didn't take me but a little bit to cut. Nearly could saw it in two.
Wow.
And you can resharpen them. You just take and reflake them. And I nap these out. I've got a friend who just naps out me big chunks, and then I finish them whichever way I want.
When you say nap, what do you mean?
Well, it's the way you chip flint, make arrowheads and spearhead.
Okay. For those of us who aren't arrowhead makers.
Yeah, well, you're gonna take up the hobby, but
right.
You can take a sharp point of one of these small antlers, and you have to put a little pad on your knee, and you just flake it, and then you turn it over and flake it the other way, back and forth, until you get it, and these chips, you start coming off, and you get, you know, I can't take it all, explain every step to it.
Is it easy to mess up?
Oh yeah, it's easy to break. You know, and you learn to read the grain in it, especially into the flint. I've got some flint pieces, and it may have a streak that runs through it, and if you ain't careful, you don't want to get around that streak, because that's going to cause it to split. So it's stuff that
so you just get a feel for it.
Yeah, you just learn it over time, and it's kind of interesting to flake it off and chip it, and
then these blades, these are decorative.
Yeah, those
Can you see? Is that visible there, Scott? It's got I guess some deer tracks there.
Yeah.
I was looking at the skull.
That's a piece of 440 stainless steel, and these tracks are done on acid. I acid etch them onto the blade.
Okay. And it looks like you even put a little mark on here, Skip Rowell Maker, so
I probably did.
that means that you actually did that blade. I guess he's not putting his name on someone else's work. I wouldn't say. And so is this a deer antler
Yeah.
too? And then some of these have,
Yeah, those are little
color.
decorative inserts. This is a piece of jasper,
okay,
but it is fluctuant jasper. It's man-made jasper. And I use it just decorating colors, the inserts. This one has a piece of turquoise in it. It just dresses them up.
oh,
a
right,
little
yeah,
bit,
that was pretty, this is an antler.
Yeah.
And then the little blade covers that you make, do you do all the tooling?
Them are not called blade covers. Them are sheaths.
Wow. All right. He's getting a little sassy. We may have to cut this short.
I might charge you this education in a day though. But yeah, like I say, I had a saddle shop for years. I made saddles, so I still kept a few tools and I make them.
And you stitch all these up and
Yeah,
make all
by hand.
these?
I just got an old stitching horse and I sew them by hand.
So is any of this stuff just kind of downtime stuff where you don't have to think about it much? Or is that what all of it's like? It's just, you just do it and it's just enjoyable?
No, it takes a little figure sometimes on what you're going to put on a particular piece. And that you run into that too. And that's why, and don't get me wrong, I do some commission work on them, but somebody come to me about 2 years ago and they had a elk teeth, a whistle teeth in an elk, it's ivory. They brought me this elk tooth about that tall, and they wanted me to put their farm on it, their house, their barn, in a pond with a couple of cows out by the pond. So that you run into that kind of stuff, people in the commission stuff. That's why I just don't like to mess with it.
Right, and that would have been a
So,
scrimshaw.
The thinking part is what I'm saying is you have to figure out what will work on a certain piece. It's like this old piece of old rough bark mammoth ivory. It wouldn't look good to put little hummingbirds and roses on it.
Right, it's a little rough and harsh looking out here, so,
You have to fit the pieces together,
So what's your favorite? What's your favorite thing?
Crappie fishing.
I like crappie fishing.
Oh, I do too.
There-
I
you
love
can't
to
beat
feel that
fishing.
thump on my pole. In fact, we just bought a boat. Can't wait for it to come in.
Oh, there you
We'll
go.
take it up again.
There you go. That's what a fellow ought to do.
Yeah. But,
What's your favorite art? I'm gonna have to ask him specifically. I can already tell.
yeah.
He's getting, so which type of art do you like? The
I guess
most?
really, I probably would, if I had to choose one, I would pick the scrimshaw. Simple reason why not everybody does it.
Exactly, right. Yeah, it's very
And I
original.
have been really blessed at art shows with the prize money and entries and stuff that I've won with it. And excuse me, every piece you get's different. So it's like you're painting on a canvas. That canvas is the same from the top to the bottom. You're working on a piece of ivory and you're scrimshawing along and all of a sudden it starts getting softer or starts getting harder. So you have to adjust your pressure. If you don't, you get dark spots. So it's challenging. I mean, it keeps you on your toes when you're working on it,
Right.
And so each piece is different and I just, it's most challenging. I guess that's why I like it better,
Right. Well, you've really brought such a variety. You said this earlier, a variety of styles of artwork. The collection that you guys have a chance to see, if you come to the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center, you're going to be very impressed. And are all of these pieces for sale?
Oh, I hope so.
Okay, Skip likes to sell his stuff. So I would say, get on down here if you want to get dibs on some of these things. And that's another thing. Every single piece done by hand like that, I mean, it's 100% unique, original.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing that's going to look exactly like something someone else
It's just like
did.
this. You'd never find another piece that looks exactly like this piece. I mean, that's just
I'll be honest, I'm so taken with the thought that these are mammoth tusks
Yeah.
that I'm a little bit obsessed now with this whole, the fact that I'm touching a mammoth tusk. I mean,
And like before you polish these, they literally do look just like a piece of old driftwood laying on the beach. If you didn't know what it was, you'd step over it. But you start sanding on them and polishing on them, and all of a sudden they start coming to life. See all the little streaks in there. I don't know if you can see them or not.
right, yes.
They're just all unique, and I'd love to get these. This has got a little bit in it. See, it has a little tint of green. That comes from copper oxides in the ground where it's laid for 75,000 years before it washed up or something, you know. So, and I started to tell you earlier, used to anybody could go up to Alaska and buy chunks of ivory off of native people. And when they were putting that pipeline in there, and not to be disparaging against them anymore, but a lot of them, they were plagued with some alcoholic problems, and they were bringing in whole mammoth tusks and trading them for liquor. And these guys working on pipeline were bringing them back and selling them. So they passed a law that they have to bring their stuff in and sell it to an authorized government dealer to give them a fair price for it. Then I buy it through dealers and stuff, you know.
Well, and I mean, that protects everyone. So that's probably a good.
I did a show in Aspen one Christmas holidays, and this guy that I did the show for was a bush pilot, and he took me up to an attic above his gallery, and he had a matching set of mammoth ivory that rolled 12 feet long, this complete curl that big around. And when this stuff comes off, you see the oval shape in the back of it. This is the way it comes off. It's kind of like a rings in a tree, and it starts peeling off over the years. And they find a lot of this stuff in western Oklahoma, probably some around here. But the minute it's uncovered, it automatically starts decaying because air gets to it, and all this stuff's been froze. In fact, they have found mammoth with still green grass in their stomach that they've uncovered out of the ice.
So how do you preserve it?
You know, I mean, it's fine just like it is.
Oh, okay.
Now, if you've got some that's a tendency to crack, you stabilize it. You put a little mixture of epoxy stuff on the back, but most of this like this, that crack's probably been there for 10,000 years and it never go any further.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, when you talked about it starts decaying, I just wondered if there's some process that you have to do to stop that.
Not on this stuff here, like if it's been in the ice, but what I'm saying is, if it laid in just dirt, oil here, like earth we got here.
Like here, it would.
So it naturally, just like bones or anything else, they eventually return dust to the dust of the earth. But this is frozen ice, so it's basically just like you took it out of your ice box, you know. So
I'm fascinated, y'all. This is very cool. Skip, this has been a great chat. And I feel like we just barely got started.
Oh, yeah, you turned into buddies, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We could have Skip on a number of times. I bet he told me he's got a lot of cowboy stories.
Boy, I sure did want to tell you about that one out of Burma.
I think we might need to hear that.
I might tell you that next time.
Next time?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever.
All right. That'll work.
That's what broke me from bragging.
Okay.
Yep.
This is probably a good tale. You guys, take note, put this on your calendar. On April the 10th, from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, we're going to have an event here at the Heritage Center called Cowboys and Cobblers. Skip's going to join us for those couple of hours. So he'll be here with his art and come down and have some cobbler, hear some cowboy poetry, and Skip might tell you a story or two.
Well, I'm sure we'll do that.
I'm sure do that. And then also I forgot the date. We have a, do what?
Is it the 15th?
The 15th,
Yes.
okay, the 15th, thank you. On the 15th, we're gonna have a reception, April the 15th, we're gonna have a reception here from 4:30 to 6:30, I believe, 4 to 6. We'll get the details and put them in the comments of this. Anyway, Skip's gonna be here again.
Y'all gonna
Skip
have-
is, we're gonna have so much of Skip around
Y'all
here.
gonna have some cookies or something there? for
Oh, yeah,
supper?
we'll have some
Good.
cookies, little pieces of cheese or something. We'll have something for y'all to snack on. So please come by and check out this exhibit. I think you're gonna be pleased, and if you see some things, just a little hint of things that you might think you'd be interested in, then bring your checkbook too, because you're gonna want to walk out of here with something.
Yeah, sure, and this, if you buy something and if you don't like it, too bad, you're stuck with
You're
it.
stuck with
Don't
it.
bring it back.
Yeah, you give it to 4:30 to 6:30. I have that right. But we will include all that information in the comments. One thing before we sign off, I want to congratulate Rebecca Ward. She won 2 free tickets to the Josh Ward with East Cache Creek concert. That's April the 10th. And that is in the evening after the Cowboy and Cobbler event that we're having here. We're going to give away 2 more tickets on April the 3rd, April the 5th, April the 7th, and then at the Cowboy and Cobbler event, you can comment on the post on Facebook to win the tickets. But on the 10th, you've got to be here at Cowboys and Cobblers. And when we draw your name, you better be here to yell. That's only fair, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, we're right on.
That's right, yeah. So thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you next week. And Skip, whenever we sign off the Trail Talk, we like to say happy trails together. You down for that?
Well, now that's kind of Roy Rogers stuff, you know.
Well, you know.
That's what Roy used to say.
Roy used to say that. Yeah, Roy and Dale and the whole gang. Trigger?
I'm good. I'm
Trigger?
good with
Is that
it,
right?
yeah.
Okay, all right
You
then.
ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Happy
Happy
trails. Bye.